Greetings, everybody. Welcome to our World Oceans Day celebration, where we're going to be sketching seahorses. In case you're new, hello, I'm Christine Elder. I'm a naturalist, environmental educator, and visual artist here in Southern Oregon. Alrighty, so here's the species we're drawing today, and there's a few reasons. One is because I had a really good photo of it. And it has a nice dark background, so it's really easy to see. And because I've actually seen this one, so this is Barbour's seahorse, and it lives in Southeast Asia, surrounding the island of Borneo, which I've been lucky to snorkel off of in one of the most beautiful places that David Attenborough called one of the pristine places in the world. Now, I always like to talk about the anatomy first before we start sketching it. It's really important to look closely before you start sketching something so that you really understand its anatomy, and that'll help you. Just spending a few more minutes doing that will be really, really useful. Okay, so anyway, seahorses, of course, are fish, but they're unique in being upright. Them and pipefish, they swim upright, and they're not very strong swimmers. They mainly swim with this one dorsal fin. They also have a tiny anal fin you can't see in this picture. And then you can also barely see, all right, I'll put it in here. This is the pectoral fin. And I don't know if you can see that very well. There we go. So those are their fins, and they just swim very slowly. They don't, migrate. They don't move around a whole lot, so they don't have to swim a lot. It's more important for them to be able to anchor themselves with this big, unique tail. So they usually live among coral reefs and eelgrass beds. They live in mangrove swamps and estuaries and eelgrass beds. Did I say that? Like where I used to live in Monterey Bay, they lived in eelgrass beds in Elkhorn Slough, the pipefish, that is. And they have live pipefish at the aquarium that some of you who've been to California may have seen before. But anyway, they use that really big tail prehensily. So just like a howler monkey, they're going to hold on tightly and also use that for balance. All righty. And then they have this fairly big head and a flexible neck. And they are covered with these interesting scales. These scales are kind of like rectangles like this. So they're different than the scales of most fish that are sort of like half moons. And then they have a really unique face. You'll notice first they have this long snout. And that's one reason they're called a seahorse, because they have this long snout. Their head kind of looks like a horse, and they have a tail like a horse. Really tiny snout, and they can't really open their mouth. They're kind of like pangolins in that way. They can't open their mouth. They just have to suck in their food, and they eat tiny microscopic like brine shrimp kind of things. And then they have a big eye, and it's kind of like a chameleon's. It can rotate around. And then you'll also notice they have a lot of these different little spines, and this top spine is called a coronet. But different species are partly identified by the number and size of their spines. And one of the craziest looking ones is the leafy sea dragon. Like I said, they're kind of harbingers or canaries in the coal mine for ocean health. And today we are observing or celebrating World Oceans Day. Many of the threats, of course, that threaten seahorses are the same things that threaten other animals. So, oh yeah, Donna says, how large is the adult? Totally depends. So there are some species that are almost microscopic, like only like a ½ inch. And then the largest one, I think, is about 1 foot tall. But anyway, anybody have any guesses how many species of seahorses there are? So seahorses are endangered by a lot of things. Probably the first thing is collecting. And when you were a kid, you may have bought one of these. And I hate to say that, well, I still have mine. This is a dried seahorse. I don't know. There it is. So they're collected for the curios trade. So, you've probably been to some seaside shop where they sell seashells and such, and you could buy these. And so I've had this ever since I was a kid. So back then I didn't know any better. But you have to be careful. I just collect, a few things from the beach. I don't buy things, but a lot of times if you're getting things at the beach that are being sold, those are being collected from the wild. So they're collected from the wild to sell to tourists. They're also collected to be sold for aquariums. Because they are a little delicate to be able to raise. So a lot of times they just collect them from the wild, from the eelgrass beds and the estuaries and the mangrove swamps and the coral reefs. And a really terrible way one way they do it is they dynamite the coral reefs. And that kills a lot of fish, but it just stuns a lot of them as well. And they raise to the surface and they catch them with nets. So you can imagine huge percent die, not only right then, but in the shipping process. Another reason many of them are threatened is from the Chinese medicinal trade or traditional Chinese medicine trade. And I've talked a lot about that in the past when we've drawn pangolins and rhinos, because these things are collected and crushed and eaten, and they have no nutritional value, but they've been used, I read, for over 2,000 years. So a lot of traditional Chinese medicine is unfortunately responsible for the decimation of a lot of species. Hi, Deb. Thanks for joining. It's okay if you're late. And then also climate change, of course. The climate is warming the oceans. And right now we're having a very strong El Nino effect that's warming all the oceans. And warm water holds less oxygen. And it's also very damaging to coral reefs. And that's one of the main places these live. Another reason they are endangered is from fishing, bycatch. So they'll just caught in the nets with other fish, and especially a really destructive kind of fishing called bottom trawling, where they basically take this very heavy metal contraption and just drag it along the seafloor. And since many seahorses, well, all of them are benthic, they're living near the seafloor, they're collected in that way. So, and then of course, also sedimentation, especially for the species that live in shallow water, in mangroves and eelgrass beds, and kelp forests. You get runoff of sediment and pollution from rivers, and that's going to affect them as well. So anyway, let's get started. Those are mainly a lot of the threats. And again, those kinds of things are threatening a lot of species on our planet, like global climate change. And I also have a link that you can check out later on. The very best website is called Project Seahorse, Advanced Marine Conservation. And I'm putting that in the chat box. And that's a great place to learn more about seahorses. They estimate that 70 million seahorses are collected every year in those for those various reasons, the traditional Chinese medicine and for curios and for the aquarium trade. 70 million of these poor things. So anyway, I'm going to keep this poor little guy the rest of my life, since I bought him, or he was given to me when I was a little kid, and I'm going to keep it to honor his life. Okay, so I'm sure you guys are ready to get started drawing. And so again, even if you don't have drawing materials, that's okay. You can learn a lot just by watching. And let me see if I can turn this light on again. I don't know if that helps or not, because it makes it a little bit shiny there, but it makes this a little brighter, I think, which we really need. So Gotta turn this. There we go. Okay, so this is one of the handouts you get when you join my newsletter and get my nature drawing kit. Although it doesn't feature seahorses, I make these for different species. But just remembering these basic concepts of blocking in the basic shapes. So we have like a triangle for the head. We've got kind of an oval for the body. We've got this circle here where the tail is, although the tail could be in a lot of different positions. And you might want to draw your tail attaching itself to an eelgrass blade. And then you want to notice proportions. So, for example, this species, the head is much bigger compared to this species. So you want to kind of notice, like if I were to measure the length of this head and then the length of the whole body, the length of the head, well, the body is about 2.5 times the length of the head with the tail curled up, right? And then you can notice alignments, like how things are aligned, whether they're parallel or perpendicular. You can also notice negative shapes. And that's another reason I printed this on black paper. I got this printed downtown. I didn't want to use up all the ink in my printer. But I have it black so that you can see these negative shapes really well, like this triangle between the cheek and the neck. And also related to that, angles. So like you can kind of notice there's like sort of a 90-degree angle here between the dorsal fin and the body, and maybe 40-degree angle here. All right. And then flow lines, that's kind of an idea I came up with that just kind of helps you think about, like if you were a tiny, what would we say? Usually I use the word ant, but if you were a tiny crab, a little microscopic crab, and you were crawling along the edge of this, how bumpy or smooth would it be? So often the heads are very bumpy and it would take a long time. And then the belly is much smoother. And so that's a smooth, quick flow line right there. And I often find that it's really good to trace. In fact, you could even put your pencil up to the screen right now for practice, because sometimes it helps for you if you just kind of pretend to be drawing something and get a feeling for the shape. Does that make sense? So tell me in the chat box, say hello, tell me if you're following along. Please tell me if you have any questions. We're going to get started in just a moment drawing. But anyway, that's my handout. And again, you can get that handout. If you're a new subscriber, you'll also often get these handouts depending on how you subscribe. But again, I have this Nature Journal recipe page you get, and then my hints for accurate nature sketching. This one is a sea lion. And then I even have it in Espanol in case you work with Spanish-speaking kids and want to do this together. And you also get my comprehensive nature journaling kit. So anyway, that's all included in my nature journaling kit that you get when you sign up for my newsletter. So I believe most of you are already on here, although some names I don't recognize, so you might be new. So anyway, again, you can check the chat box or just go to my website at christineelder.com, and there'll be a pop-up that has you, gives you a link. There we go. Okay. I still feel like we're a little bit off. And Deb says you'll catch the replay. You didn't miss too much. We were doing a lot of intro. Okay, now, so let's get started. I'm actually using hot press watercolor paper here because later on I might fill this in. It depends, and I'll probably use these charcoals for shading. But this guy is really tall and narrow, really straight up, really tall and narrow. He's only about as wide as the head is long. So a lot of times I'll do these little measurements. Um, and I'm going to be drawing a bit darker than I want you to, just so that you can see it online. I want you to start off with a very light touch that you can hardly even see, so you don't feel like you need to erase, okay? Because we're going to kind of be pretending we're sketching in the field, right? Okay, I'm just trying to get this in the right place. I wish I could just leave my camera set up all the time, but I can't. Let's see, is this changing? No. All righty. So I'm just gonna put this. You may have already started drawing, but his head's pretty much, so I'm gonna put him, he's gonna be basically, and remember it is a he because he's got this kind of, I can tell there's this empty pouch. So he's not carrying his baby. So we're just going to have a line showing just how long he is. And then I'm going to have kind of a line showing where the head is. And if I wanted to measure, which you can't right now, because you don't have the, well, if you're in my nature notebook club, you got this handout along with 5 other pages of high resolution images. And I'll talk about that later. So anyway, I just kind of try to get the basic area here that we're going to be working on, because it's so important early on to get your proportions right. Because if you don't get those right in the beginning, you're never going to really like what you come up with. So I like to just get those proportions. And again, this is very long and it's very wide. Yeah, so I just like to do some little measurements here. Okay, so let's start with the head first. And I'm just going to try to be kind of loose with the head for the beginning here, and we'll get more detail. So there's a long snout, and there's kind of where the cheek is, where the eye is going to be. And then there's the forehead and the jaw, and then the coronet part on top. So yeah, I just try to not commit too early. Kind of like when you're dating in college, right? You just want to meet a few people and not commit too early. Make sure your decision, and that's kind of what I do when I'm drawing. And again, if I want to, I can measure. I got that pretty good. Okay, and then this nice arch. Remember, they all are called a seahorse for a reason, because they do sort of look like a horse that's arching its neck, maybe kind of like an Arabian horse. If you know me in person, you know I love horses, and I spent a lot of my life working with horses. So there's this line here, so it arches and then it comes straight down and then curls up around the tail. And then the neck is quite narrow. It looks like you don't want to make the neck that narrow, but it really is pretty narrow. And sometimes, yeah, it does really help if you have whatever specimen you are drawing with you, or a photo. It's really easy to do these little measurements. I'm not sure if you can do that by putting your pencil up to the monitor or not, but that could be one way. But we're just going to keep it just light. Again, I want to see how fat the belly is. See, I've got him too skinny. And talking about angles and alignments, this belly is behind. Doesn't come out as far as the snout. And maybe this could be a little fatter here. But you see how I just keep going very lightly. And then this slowly gets skinnier. And you see I'm not doing any erasing. Okay, no erasing yet. And I'm keeping things really light, although I'm drawing darker than I want you to. And here's the tail. And this doesn't have to be exact because, again, this is the part that moves, kind of like the head. The head could be looking up, it could be looking down. And it doesn't have to be curled exactly like this, but you can also practice looking at those black negative shapes to help you draw that. And it can be intimidating to draw something sort of pretty like this. And one way I encourage my students to get out of that mode of being intimidated is you can turn the whole thing upside down if you want to. I'm not going to do that because I've got it all set up. But sometimes turning something upside down, tell me in the chat box. I know many of you guys, like Jay, has followed me for quite a long time. You've probably done that with me before. And it's amazing how turning something upside down for a while really helps you to see its structure better. Okay, so now I've kind of got the basic outline. Now that now I think I'll start actually doing the final shape of each part. And again, I'm not erasing yet. I'm gonna just keep my tri lines, and yeah. So starting with the snout, they have kind of this upturned lip, and then a little tiny mouth. Again, they can they can't really open their mouth. Again, they're kind of like a pangolin in that way, although pangolins have a very long tongue to help them suck up the termites. But these guys just use suction, okay? And then we've got a few of these fun little bumps. And each species is pretty exact with these bumps, but you don't have to be drawing this exact species. So that's the outline of that. And then its eye. Let's see, its eye. Now, they always have these interesting radiating lines. We're not going to do that yet. I'm going to get the eye and maybe fill it in with a little highlight. Not sure if you can see that I got a highlight there. Okie dokie. Now, let me double check this. Oh, that is a little bit long. Okay, yeah. So now we're going to, I think what I did, I'm a little off here. So before I put these spines on, I am going to darken up because I got a little bit too crazy with that arch. Yeah, I think that's the arch I want more. And let me get this arch a bit more before we add all those spines. And there's a little indentation here where his brood pouch kind of ends. And then the inside of the tail is well, it's pretty smooth. It gets a little wiggly here because it's kind of pressed because it's curled around in a circle, right? All right. And then let me see. I think I'll keep this a little fatter here. And something like that. Now I will finally do some erasing to get rid of all these tri lines. Okay. Because now we want to try to put in some of those interesting, they're not called scales. I forgot the name of these plates. They're kind of like plates, I suppose, but they're a different shape. And sorry, as I'm erasing, it's wiggling this whole table. I don't have the sturdiest setup here yet. This is my new studio, and some of you did help donate to help fund getting me this set up because it is quite expensive to move and get this new space set up. So I really appreciate that. Some of my donors. All right. So tell me if you're keeping up. Tell me if you have, just say yes if you're keeping up. And yeah, I think that's pretty close for an overall shape. Now he's looking kind of skinny because we don't have the dorsal fin in yet, or this big muscle. Because again, this is one of the main fins. It help propel him forward. And these pectoral fins on the cheek help them turn left to right. So when we get this in, he'll look a little fatter. And again, if I wanted to get an angle here, kind of figure out where I'm at, maybe, I think I got him looking up a little bit more than this one, but it doesn't matter. So there's just this big area here that is muscular attachment. And then we have the fin. Okay. Deb says, gotta go. Something came up. Great. I'll see you soon. And Jay, she said she's ready, following along. Okay, wonderful. A lot of fish have a lot more complicated fins than this one. And you may have joined me for drawing other fish. I do have a whole course on drawing fish. I'm going to get this a little fatter. But some fish have quite complicated fins. But anyway, we just noticed that there's this muscular hump there. And then there are the fin rays, which are sort of spiny. They're kind of like the skeleton. So just like our skeleton that strengthens. And so there's that. Okie doke. Now, there is another fin, the anal fin here, but I'm not going to add that. It's really tiny. And yeah, I'm not going to add that. But speaking of fins, I do want to add this other fin. Again, these are pairs. This is just one dorsal fin. And then there's a pair of the cheek fins or the pectoral fins. And so I've darkened them up. And that's there. And they're not as muscular, so you can't really see this big muscle here. All righty, great. So now I will just start adding a bit more of these spines and wiggly things, and then I guess I can kind of erase some of this line. But yeah, so. And if you go to that Project Seahorse website that I linked in the chat box, I think it's projectseahorse.org. They have some really great information about different species. Oh yeah, I didn't tell you guys how many species there are. So, like with a lot of animals that live in remote areas like the deep oceans, or the rainforest. We don't know how many, but there have been 46 species described. So yeah, you'd think there'd be a lot more, but they are a very specialized kind of critter. Maybe there were more in the distant past. And they do generally live in the tropics, but they are in some temperate areas. There are, and also their relatives, the pipefish. So yeah, anyway, if I wanted to, then I could erase. Now, something I usually have, I'm going to let you catch up for a second. Let me just have this here for a minute to remind you. I got to find something. Where is it? Oh, no. Ah, okay, how we doing? Are we still keeping up? Okay. So you probably, if you're new here, uh, you might not know, but I generally talk about at this point value scales and kind of where the sun is coming from, or maybe the moon. And you can tell this is really bright up here. It's like almost colors are washed out. So you can pretty much tell where the sun is coming from. And it's right up here. It's actually more off the page, but I got to show you the whole page here. There, so the sun's up there. So because we can see this area that's almost washed out, and we see some highlights here on the bigger, fatter belly, and some highlights down here, especially on some of these ridges, because there are all these ridges, and it would probably take us forever to draw these. You could keep going if you want, and you can take a screenshot if you want of this photo. Let me see if I can get. I don't know if you have your phone with you, if you want to take a picture. I do not want to encourage you to go leave and take and get on your phone. But and again, if you're in my Nature Notebook membership, I almost always include extras in terms of these high resolution images for my members to thank them for being a member. But anyway, I'm going to turn that back on. Does that help or not? No, maybe I'll just keep it off. Okie dokie. So, so then I'm going to start adding some highlights and shadows. And if you just have a pencil, you could do that with a pencil, just lightly with the value scale. Well, I don't want to ruin this paper here. Whatever medium you're using, you can emulate that value scale. You just push a little bit harder each time, and you can get a full range of values, right? So there's my value scale. Okay. So anyway, you can kind of notice that, one way we can tell that there's all these little plates. And can you see me outlining those? I don't know if you can see that. I'm trying to outline those for you. But you could see that there's highlights on those because those kind of stick up. And there's highlights along the belly too. You actually have, let me just lighten this line a bit. You have those plates, kind of side views of those plates going and then it gets smoother here on the male where he has his brood patch. This is the area where he's going to be pregnant. And then, yeah, so you kind of see those. And, you could spend a lot of time getting those. But I like to just give a little bit of a hint. And we can see those lines kind of coming down here. So it's a bit faster for me. I like to use these a charcoal and a blending stomp. And sometimes I won't actually draw on the paper. I mean, on my subject. Sometimes I'll just get a little bit of the charcoal here and just kind of draw with this. But whatever you have, you can just add some three-dimensional form. And a lot of times before I actually start getting into all the highlights in these plates, I want to just generally show a little bit of the three-dimensional form with the highlights and shadows of the plates on top, right? So, for example, the bottom of his snout and the front part of his snout, and the cheek area, that's kind of shaded because, of course, this is not a flat like the piece of paper. This has a rounded area. And then we have quite a bit of shadow, this whole area of the belly. And let me see. Again, I can just get a bunch of charcoal here. And actually I can shade a bit under that pectoral fin, and that'll bring that out a bit. So anyway, before I do any of the more superficial highlights and shadows of each plate, I'll just try to get some general three-dimensional form based on, what I know. And then, so like the bottom of this, the bottom of that. Can you guys see this shadowing I'm adding? So again, imagine there's rays of sunlight coming down here, and we want to first get the idea of the sunlight just on this whole three-dimensional form, and then we can add some extra. And so at this point, I might, add some charcoal here. Again, whatever you're using. But now I might just add some ideas of some of these plates. And I don't want to totally ruin this picture, but tell me if you can see these plates. Oh, wait, I think I can go closer. Oh, there we go. So yeah, you can see these. Let me go back. There we go. So I don't want to go overboard with this, but I might just add a little bit. And just to give the viewer sort of a suggestion of what's going on. We don't want them to look, like a pine cone, which can happen also if you're drawing pangolins. If you try to draw every single scale, it's easy to make them sort of look like a pangolin, pine cone. All right. Tell me how you're doing. So now I'll go around, and sometimes it helps me to keep focused is to point, or I'll point with my pen to just keep me focused on where I'm at. Like if I wanted to add a little bit more interesting, there's these patterns, kind of like these worm-like swirly patterns. And there's always these patterns that are radiating out from the eye in seahorses. Can you see that? Petra says yes. Yeah, okay. And then, so it helps me because I get really distracted, especially when I'm teaching live, where I'm at. And so I try to keep, okay, noticing there's more of a highlight under these lines. So are you keeping up? Are you having fun? Now, in my email earlier, I talked about how, when we're drawing something, it's not just about the seahorse or whatever we're drawing. It's just about helping you to see highlights and shadows. And again, if I slow down and I try to actually see, like there's shadow under each of these ridges, and that helps us know. And again, if you're in my club and you printed out the the high resolution images, you could see this better, and you could also turn it upside down. And there's also these lines going like this. Now, I am a trained scientific illustrator, and if I was going to do this, in that form, I would be counting all of these plates and carefully measuring and counting the different scales and such. But that's different than what I teach field sketching. Like, if you could pretend if you're at the Monterey Bay Aquarium and you're observing the pipefish. I don't know if they still have those there. Tell me if you've been to the aquarium lately. But anyway, you see how I'm putting these more superficial highlights and shadows of the plates sort of on top of the main three-dimensional form of this, sort of tubular animal, right? So yeah, like I was saying in my email this morning, this isn't just about seahorses. You could care less about seahorses, although everybody thinks they're adorable, right? But, I encourage you to practice drawing things even if you don't like them, even if you think there's nothing interesting to draw in your life right now, and you just have some ugly rock or something. The act of drawing is really going to help you to especially work on this three-dimensional form stuff. I think I want to accentuate those cool radiating lines. I think those are actually, they're not just lines. I think they're sort of ridges. There we go. But it's really nice to emphasize the face of an animal. Yeah, and the front of the eye is more in shadow because it's rounded and bulbous, so it's going to be reflecting more sun on this side than it does on this side. And if I wanted to, I could add some little shrimp that it's sucking up or something. Fun. Okay, do you have any questions? Anyway, you could get that a lot more realistic, spending more time on it. Kind of cute. Yeah, and if you wanted to, you could add the in this picture here, this kid's book, it shows them in the eelgrass beds. And so sorry, that sound. So they are going to be attaching themselves to something. I could maybe have this be in front. They're wrapping their tail around it. There we go. And you could add some more whatever. Jay says close up good. Oh, do you want me to go close up more? you want to see Jay, you have access to the high resolution image, but anyway, yeah, it's easier for you to see those. I don't want to, but yeah, the more you look at something, and again, if you turned it upside down, which I'm not going to do because I finally got it in the right place, it really helps you to see these shadows more. Like I noticed that kind of the whole snout is in more of a shadow than the lips. And yeah. And there's these interesting patterns on the head. And great. So Jay, is that what you wanted? You wanted me to get closer like I am? And so, yeah, it really helps. Jay says, why is this one so colorful? Well, I mean, there are a lot of different species, and often they will mimic the color of their habitat. So like, for example, this one, which is the species we drew back in 2019, which you also have a high resolution image of inside your club membership. This one lives in coral reefs and sometimes is more greenish to blend in. But this is a very, very tiny one. It lives among these pink corals, and this is it. It just looks like another piece of coral. So there are very, very many species. Well, not many species. I said there were 46 or 47, but yeah. So you can see those plates better. Yeah, and I think I made my little squiggly parts a little bit too regular, So again, I like to kind of like point at something and then try to draw it and point and try to draw it. So, I might modify mine later. So I was doing, my first drawing was a little bit more just symbolic, right? Okay. So I do want to come back out a bit. Yeah. And again, you can download my high resolution images if you're in the club. So I don't know if you've heard about my club before, but I'm going to let you keep working on this and sketching. And I'd like to share a bit about that because this is a free class for my whole community. So my business coach is always telling me I need to promote my offerings more. I can't afford to do everything for free. But anyway, I do have this membership and I'm talking about it a lot this past month and doing a lot more free content to have folks get to know my teaching style. And so my membership is a monthly membership. It's called the Nature Notebook Club. And if you're on my email list or anywhere on social media, you've seen links to it. And some of my viewers today are in the club. And so that's a way for you to have a community, kind of like we're a community here of nature sketchers, because we're kind of an odd bunch. It's not like everybody likes that sort of hobby, right? And what was I going to say? Oh, I'm getting distracted. Something's in the front yard. We've got lots of birds trying to get to those blueberries and raspberries that we were drawing last week. So anyway, my club is a great way for you to join an inspiring community to keep you creating on a schedule, because we have weekly tips, we have monthly master classes. So we have also monthly Zoom calls. So you get to have some accountability, just like you have today, to draw together. So that keeps you doing it more. So, like, for example, if you like to, if you want to get better at yoga or ballroom dancing or playing guitar, it really helps to have a community to do that with. So that's part of what the Nature Notebook Club is. And then it also is a place for you to learn about nature. Now, a lot of folks that follow me are retired and maybe they have grandkids. And nature journaling and nature sketching is just a fabulous activity to do with them, to get them off their phones as well as get you off your phones. And so my programs teach that. And so there's a whole library inside of the club for learning nature sketching and nature journaling and field watercolors. And so it gives you just enough information to get started because I don't want to overwhelm you. So most of the content in the library is between like 5 and 30 minutes to just give you the white papers, I guess they'd say, the white sheet of how to do certain things. And then if you want to go deeper into learning about a certain critter so that you can draw it more accurately, then we have our monthly master classes. And everything we do, all of our new content every month goes into the library. That's why I've been raising the price steadily over this last year since we started. And the price is going up July 1st. So I really encourage you to get in there. So yeah, there's a whole library of content. And so every month we have a new masterclass, we have new nature sketching tips. And so my business coach said, I really have to raise the price because this is my business. I've been an environmental educator and visual artist, an outdoor educator for 30 years. And so this is the main way I support myself, and it's my love. And I go online and do a lot of these events for free, but I really need a certain proportion of my members, of my audience, to become paid members. And my programs are always very well priced. Currently, the price is only $29, and $29 doesn't get you very far. That would only get you maybe one 2-hour art class in person, at a local art gallery. That might buy you just one book on drawing. That hardly gets you into a movie anymore. So it's a really, really, really good value. I try to stay very low priced. But to keep a low price, I need a larger audience to help pay for that. And I do like to try to continue to have these semi-weekly, bi-weekly events for my whole community of followers so that everyone can join, because I really love to help other educators, environmental educators, families, and kids to be able to draw and appreciate the natural world. So I like to I hope that, we can pay it forward by a proportion of my audience paying for the membership, and you get a lot from that membership. Now, I did want to, before I forget, because we're running out of time, I want to make sure that I copy the invite in the chat box for you live viewers. If you want to come on stage and say hello or ask any questions or show me your sketches, it really helps me to know if you're able to follow along, if I'm going slowly enough and explaining things clearly. So, if you share your screen and get online with me, it's not to really show off your beautiful drawing, but to just help me to know that I'm helping you and making an impact, positive impact on your weekend. And so it really helps. So if you've ever done a Zoom call, you probably have the audio and video capability to hop online. And again, I put that in the chat box that says StreamYard.com. And if you click on that, and if you have audio and video capabilities, then you will come on screen. So Anyway, yeah, the club gives you inspired community. It helps you stay motivated with weekly and monthly content. It educates you with the monthly master classes. Now, this month is flowers because I do try to have the master classes related to the season. So, like we did birds this spring, we did amphibians this spring, we did reptiles last summer in the heat. Well, thank you so much for joining me today for World Oceans Day and for drawing this beautiful Barbour's seahorse that lives in Southeast Asia. And I hope you enjoyed being in community and getting my ideas of how I start a sketch and how I start to add some three-dimensional form and patterns and textures. And you also learned a bit about the threats to seahorses, which are some of the same threats that threaten lots of animals and plants that we're going to think about today in World Oceans Day. So again, thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you next time. And I hope to see you inside the Nature Notebook Club. Take care. Bye-bye.